I've always prided myself on being a good husband. I worked tirelessly to provide for my wife, Maya, and our two children, Ria and Araf. We had built a comfortable life together, filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams. We were the picture perfect family, or so I thought. But then, the unthinkable happened. Maya betrayed my trust in a way I never could have imagined. It started with subtle changes. Maya, once vibrant and full of life, began to withdraw. She became more distant, more preoccupied. Our conversations, once filled with shared stories and laughter, grew terse and minimal. She was constantly on her phone, and her late nights at work, once a rare occurrence, became a regular part of our routine. I tried to dismiss these as normal stresses of life, convincing myself that it was just a phase, but a nagging doubt crept into my mind. Before the betrayal, our love story was one that most people envied. Maya and I met in our final year of college during a cultural fest. She was the most captivating woman I had ever laid eyes on, confident, intelligent, and with a smile that could light up any room. I remember the first time I saw her. She was on stage, leading a group in a debate. Her eloquence and passion were magnetic. I was instantly drawn to her, and it wasn't long before I found an excuse to introduce myself. We hit it off immediately. Maya was studying business management, and I was in my final year of engineering. Our interests were different, but that's what made our relationship exciting. She was full of life, always dreaming big, and I was more grounded, content with the simpler pleasures. Yet, we found a balance, complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses. After graduation, we both landed good jobs in our respective fields. Maya's ambition was clear from the start. She wasn't just interested in climbing the corporate ladder. She wanted to reach the top. I admired her drive and was always there to support her, cheering her on every step of the way. We got married soon after, and it felt like the beginning of a fairy tale. We were madly in love, and the future seemed bright. The early years of our marriage were blissful. We bought a cozy home in a peaceful neighborhood and started building our life together. Maya was flourishing at work, quickly rising through the ranks at her firm. Her colleagues admired her, and her bosses recognized her potential. I was proud of her accomplishments, and I loved seeing her succeed. We decided to start a family a few years into our marriage. When Ria was born, it felt like our lives were complete. 2 years later, Araf came into the world, and our joy doubled. Maya was an amazing mother, caring, attentive, and always putting our children's needs above her own. I loved watching her with Ria and Araf. It was clear that they were the center of her world. Even with her demanding job, Maya always made time for us. We would have family dinners every night, go on weekend outings, and spend quality time together. She was the glue that held our family together, and I felt incredibly lucky to have her by my side. But as the years went by, something changed. Maya became more engrossed in her work, and the late nights at the office became more frequent. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, she had always been dedicated to her career. But there was a shift in her demeanor. She seemed more distant, more preoccupied. Our conversations became shorter, and the laughter that once filled our home grew scarce. Maya's appearance also began to change. She had always been beautiful, but now she seemed almost obsessed with looking perfect. She would spend hours getting ready in the morning, applying makeup and choosing her outfits with meticulous care. When I complimented her, she would barely acknowledge it, brushing off my words with a distracted smile. I tried to ignore the growing sense of unease, convincing myself that it was just a phase. I told myself that Maya was under a lot of stress at work, and that she would eventually return to the loving, carefree woman I had married. But the doubt continued to gnaw at me, a constant, nagging presence in the back of my mind. One evening, while helping Ria with her homework, I noticed Maya's phone buzzing repeatedly on the kitchen counter. She had stepped out for a moment, so I decided to glance at the screen. The messages were from someone named V, and they were flirtatious in nature. My heart sank. When Maya returned home that night, I confronted her about the messages. She brushed it off, laughing it away as harmless banter between colleagues. "It's nothing, really," she said, her smile too tight, too forced. "Vikram is just a friend. We joke around sometimes, but it doesn't mean anything." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her. But the nagging doubt in my mind refused to be silenced. In the following weeks, I noticed more and more signs that something wasn't right. Maya became increasingly secretive, guarding her phone like it was her lifeline. She would step out of the room to take calls, her voice hushed and urgent. When I asked her who she was talking to, she would give me vague answers, claiming it was work-related. I began to feel like an outsider in my own marriage. The woman I had loved and trusted for years was now a stranger to me. I tried to push the doubts aside, convincing myself that I was overreacting. But the tension between us was palpable. The more I tried to reach out to her, the more she pulled away. The first real confirmation came when I found that crumpled piece of paper in her purse. The phone number, the call to Vikram, it all fell into place, and I realized the depth of Maya's betrayal. I was devastated, but I needed to know the truth. That night, I confronted her. The air was thick with tension as I laid the crumpled piece of paper on the table between us. Her eyes widened in shock, but she quickly composed herself. At first, she denied everything, her voice steady and calm. "It's not what you think," she said, her tone pleading. "Vikram and I are just friends. That number is from work." But the truth was too glaring to ignore. I could see it in her eyes, the guilt, the fear of being caught. Eventually, she broke down, tears streaming down her face. She admitted to the affair, but claimed it was over. "I made a terrible mistake," she sobbed. "It meant nothing to me. I love you, and I want to make things right." I wanted to believe her, or at least I wanted to. For our children's sake, I tried to forgive her. I told myself that everyone makes mistakes, that love was about forgiveness and second chances. But forgiveness was easier said than done. The pain of betrayal ran deep, festering like an open wound. I struggled to trust her again, to see her the same way I once did. Every time she left the house, a knot of anxiety formed in my stomach. I became paranoid, questioning her every move, her every word. Our once loving relationship became strained and suffocating. As the weeks passed, I tried to move on, to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. But then, I discovered something even more shocking. It happened by chance. I was sorting through some old files on her computer, trying to find a document she had asked me to locate. As I clicked through the folders, I stumbled upon an email thread between Maya and Vikram. What I read left me reeling. Maya had not only cheated on me, she had also taken Vikram's business from him. The affair was just the tip of the iceberg. It turned out that Maya and Vikram had been involved in a complex scheme to defraud Vikram's company. She had used her position as his trusted advisor to embezzle millions of dollars. The money had been laundered and invested in a series of offshore accounts, all under Vikram's nose. It was a betrayal not just of our marriage, but of her own moral compass. I was stunned. The woman I had loved and trusted had betrayed me on a grand scale. She had not only broken my heart, but had also ruined her own life. The realization was too much to bear. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, unable to wake up. The person I had shared my life with, the mother of my children, was not the woman I thought she was. Determined to expose the truth, I contacted the authorities. The investigation that followed was a roller coaster of emotions. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. Finally, the truth was out, and Maya's double life was laid bare for all to see. The scandal that ensued was a public humiliation. Our once perfect life was shattered beyond repair. I was left to pick up the pieces, to rebuild my life without the woman I had loved. Maya was arrested and charged with fraud. The court proceedings were a blur of legal jargon and endless testimonies. I attended every session, watching as Maya was slowly stripped of everything: her dignity, her freedom, her future. It was heartbreaking to see, but I knew it was necessary. Justice had to be served. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to realize that I was not alone. My friends and family rallied around me, offering support and encouragement. They reminded me that life goes on. Even after the worst of betrayals, I found solace in their company, in their unwavering belief that I could rise above the pain. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life. I focused on my children, on giving them the love and stability they needed. Ria and Arav were my anchors, keeping me grounded in the midst of the storm. I also found solace in my work, throwing myself into projects that kept my mind occupied. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the pain felt unbearable. But I knew that I had to keep going, for myself and for my children. The journey to healing was long and difficult, but I emerged stronger and more resilient. Maya was sentenced to several years in prison. I visited her once, hoping to find closure, but the meeting was brief and tense. She seemed like a shadow of her former self, broken and remorseful. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but I knew that forgiveness was still a long way off. As I left the prison that day, I felt a sense of finality. The chapter of my life with Maya was closed, and it was time to move on. In the years that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life and creating a new future for myself and my children. I found joy in the simple things: watching Ria and Arav grow up, spending time with friends, and rediscovering my own passions. The pain of betrayal slowly faded, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. I realized that life is full of unexpected twists and turns, but it is also full of opportunities for growth and renewal. Looking back, I see that the betrayal was a turning point in my life. It forced me to confront my own fears and insecurities, to let go of the past and embrace the future. It was a painful journey, but it also taught me valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of staying true to oneself. I emerged from the experience with a deeper understanding of who I am and what I want out of life. The scars of betrayal will always be there, but they are a reminder of my strength and my ability to overcome even the darkest of times. In the end, I found a new sense of purpose and a renewed commitment to living my life with integrity and honesty. I realized that true happiness comes from within, from being at peace with oneself, and from surrounding oneself with people who truly care. The betrayal was a painful chapter in my life, but it was not the end of my story. It was a beginning, a chance to start over, to build a life that is authentic and meaningful. And for that, I am grateful. Hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.